There's this secret rule book for how we're supposed to age. And let's be honest, the rules are completely different for men and women. We're often told it's just about age, but when you really look closer, you start to see this powerful and frankly frustrating double standard. So today, we're going to tear a few pages out of that hidden rule book. But before we get into all that, let me ask you something personal. Think about the last time you were on a dating app. You know that little age filter you set? Was that just a simple preference, or was it maybe a form of discrimination? That blurry line right there, that's exactly what we're going to explore. Okay, so let's start where these biases are usually on full display, the wild world of online dating. These stories are real, and wow, do they reveal a lot about those unwritten rules. Get this. This quote is from a 69-year-old man, and he apparently said it to his dating coach with a smug smile, like he truly thought he was being generous. His reasoning: he just assumes out of thin air that all women his age couldn't possibly keep up with him. And then you've got this head-scratcher. A 44-year-old guy wants a younger partner to have kids with, which, okay, that's a biological reality. But here's the thing. He would then turn around and criticize women in their late 30s for doing the exact same thing he did, focusing on a career before starting a family. That right there, that's the double standard in action. And look, this isn't just about men. Here we have a 59-year-old woman who's very active, and she made the same kind of sweeping judgment call, just in reverse. She just wrote off all men her age as being out of shape and old. So the bias, it definitely cuts both ways, and it's fueled by these lazy stereotypes instead of, getting to know an actual person. But this quote, this one from a 72-year-old woman, just cuts through all the noise, doesn't it? It perfectly captures the frustration and just how absurd it is to be dismissed because of a number. And it really shows that these dating stories, they're not really about dating. They're a window into a much, much bigger issue in our society. So let's zoom out from the dating world for a second and look at the wider problem, this gendered double standard, because this is so much bigger than personal preference. It's a bias that's literally baked into our culture. The official term for it is ageism, discriminating against someone just because of how old they are. But here's the crucial part. For women, ageism rarely travels alone. It gets all tangled up with sexism, and together they create what one source calls a powerful, suffocating force. And this is what that double standard actually looks like. As men get older, society often sees them as gaining value. They become distinguished, wise, the silver fox. But for women, well, society tends to frame aging as a decline. As their perceived youth and beauty fade, so does their visibility. They literally risk being erased. Now, this double standard doesn't just hang out in the background. It creates this intense, lifelong pressure on women to fight a battle they can literally never win, the battle against time itself. I mean, think about a comment like this. You've probably heard it or maybe even said it. It's almost always meant as a compliment, right? But let's just break down what's really being said. It's basically saying that looking your actual age is a bad thing, something you should be relieved you've managed to avoid. So the subtext, the quiet message behind all of this, is a constant command: do not age. Or, if you have to, at least do it gracefully, which is pretty much just code for looking as young as you possibly can for as long as you can. And this isn't just harmless stuff. It takes a real psychological toll. I mean, imagine constantly battling time, feeling like your worth is only skin deep, and then feeling that quiet sting of being overlooked for opportunities at work. All of that is just amplified by a culture that worships youth and an entire industry built to tell you you're flawed and need fixing. Which kind of brings us to the big question, right? Why? Why is our society so uniquely obsessed with the idea of female youth? Seriously, it's a fixation that seems to run so much deeper than just looks or biology. So what is really driving all of this? Well, according to the sources we looked at, the answer comes down to one single powerful word: control. This obsession isn't actually about appearance. It's about power. So the theory goes something like this. Younger women are often seen as easier to shape, easier to fit into traditional roles. But as women get older, they gain experience, confidence, a stronger voice. They become, as one source put it, harder to manage. And they're more likely to challenge the system. And that, to some, can feel like a threat. So if that's the problem, What's the solution? How do we even begin to push back and start to rewrite this whole narrative about women and aging? Well, the path forward seems to have three really important steps. First, we just have to acknowledge that the bias is real. We can't fix a problem we're all pretending doesn't exist. Second, we need to push for media that actually shows women as they are, confident, powerful, and real at every single age. And finally, and this is the really big one, we have to fundamentally redefine what we value, shifting the focus away from just appearance and onto a woman's contributions, her wisdom, and her lived experience. Really, the ultimate goal here is to completely transform our relationship with aging, to stop seeing it as some enemy we have to fight or hide from, and to start seeing it for what it is, a natural part of life, a sign of growth and resilience and wisdom. It's something to be embraced, not something to be feared. So I'll just leave you with this thought. Imagine for a second a world where wrinkles weren't seen as flaws that needed to be erased, but as a map of a life that's been fully lived. What would our society even look like if we valued experience with the same intensity that we currently value youth?